Hey there guys, what is up? My name is Manthias and it is time to look at Inscription. This was one of my favourite professions in Battle for Azeroth, certainly at the beginning because the Darkmoon cards were mental. There is more Darkmoon cards coming in Shadowlands, we'll get to those in a little bit. Let's first start off, let's look at the basics, let's see what's changed and then see if we can break down Inscription in a little bit of detail. So, inks. Inks are going to be your main thing, you're going to get your inks from milling your herbs again. 3 different types of inks, same sort of system. You've got the 2 basic inks that you'll get in presumably large quantities when you do your milling, and then this is what's known as Tranquil Ink. Tranquil Ink is going to be the big one for us. This is going to be the expensive one. This is the one we're going to need in large quantities for things like Darkmoon cards, and is going to play a big part for any scribe. So, let's look at some of the other things that we've seen previously. We've seen that crafter's marks are a thing in Shadowlands. If you haven't seen my previous guides for some of the other professions, make sure you check those out, as they will give you a good insight to what these crafting marks do in slightly more detail. But simply put, this is another way to be able to make those crafting marks. Notably, it might end up being cheaper to make crafter's marks with some professions than it is others, as they do appear to be bind on pickup, but they don't appear to be spec for spec required. So you could be a scribe and a blacksmith, and it may end up being cheaper to make your crafter's marks with your blacksmith, but to then use them on inscription gear, or vice versa. We'll have to wait and see when the prices balance out, when things go live. But crafter's marks are designed there to be able to increase the item level of your gear, currently all the way up to item level 200, but the acquisition of these is usually locked behind a faction grind, so bear that in mind. One thing that is going to be of high demand early on from your scribes is going to be the missives. These are the items that are used with the crafted legendary items. You create the base crafted legendary item and then you add on a couple of missives of your choice to determine which stats you want to roll on it. So of course, because of that, there is a missive for crit, haste, mastery and versatility, all balanced out exactly the same in terms of weighting, but they're going to give you those secondary stats on your legendary items. A few default things that you'd expect from any scribe, no changes in this situation. You got your codex that's going to allow players in and around you to change their talents, and you've got the tome of the still mind giving you personally the ability to do so. These are going to be quite expensive. They'll be quite popular earlier on. The Tranquil Ink is going to be an absolute killer. These are used in a lot of things and they're going to be very rare and presumably very expensive. Remember at the right at the beginning of Battle for Azeroth, it was not uncommon for Tranquil Inks to be 100, 200, 250, 300 gold each. These got quite expensive at the beginning because of the sheer number of herbs that people were milling and needed to craft everything. There is this Writ of the grave robbing. It's another item. It's basically your lockpick item. Scribes have always had a lockpick item. The same thing is in Shadowlands, at least as at the start. We also have the contracts. Contracts are a big thing that's come into play with scribes. These give players the ability to increase the reputation that they gain with certain factions. Certainly at the beginning there are a few items in the game that are going to be locked behind reps, and getting your hands on these is going to be really important. The thing to note with them is that for you as a scribe to be able to get them, you have to become quite well renowned with the certain factions themselves. So Court of Harvesters, for example, which is actually the faction you need to get exalted with to be able to make the crafter's marks for in most cases. At least for blacksmiths, it might be different for others, I haven't checked. But you need to be revered with them before you can even start making the contracts. So these are not going to be in the game straight away. As you can see, Ascended, revered, the Undying Army, revered, Wild Hunt, revered. It's going to take people a little bit of time to get those reputations up before these contracts become available. But trust me, when they hit the auction house, they're going to sell well. You're one of the first players to have access to these. You're going to make bank. The one thing that I think people really would want me to talk about when it comes to Inscription, at least early on in Shadowlands, is Darkmoon Cards. Darkmoon Cards are similar in nature as they have been previously, but there is a little bit of a twist in here. There are still 4 Darkmoon cards. They still create trinkets. The difference being is that those trinkets, rather than being just passive procs, are now 3-minute on-use cooldowns. Similar situation, 1 for casters, 1 for tanks, 1 for melee and 1 for healers. So these are going to be in demand by nearly everybody. Their item level is pretty high. I want to say their item level is 200, but don't quote me on that, I can't remember exactly. Regardless of the fact, these are going to be in high demand at least throughout the first tier in Shadowlands. Now you'll see I said there's only 4, but there is 5 listed here. Well, when you start making Darkmoon cards, if you are looking to craft lots of them in bulk to be able to sell decks, to sell multiple decks, you're going to start crafting Darkmoon Card of Death. This gives you the chance to craft any random Darkmoon card. It's got quite high material cost, and it will give you 1 card out of any of the 4 possible decks. Now, there is a small possibility, it doesn't say what the percentage chance is yet, and because of limited amount of herbs on the beta servers, it's kind of difficult to test this, but it occasionally will give you a blank card of a certain deck, and what you can then do is add an additional Tranquil Ink from it and craft a specific card from that deck, from that one specific deck. You can't tailor it down to I want the ace, or I want the 7, or I want the 4, but you can say when I craft this card, it's going to be a specific card of that exact deck, 1 of Repose, 1 of Indomitable, 1 of Veracity, etc, etc. So there is a way to slightly focus more in on which cards you are crafting, as the likelihood is that one of these cards, just like the Fathoms deck in Battle for Azeroth, was 10 times the price of all the others due to its demand. If you want to be able to focus down a little bit when you're crafting your Darkmoon Cards of Death, there is that chance that you'll get these blank cards, and those blank cards can be used to craft more cards. The theory is that occasionally you'll get a blank card and it will be on top of the normal card you get rather than instead of, which does mean that eventually, once you've crafted enough cards, you will have enough blank cards to hopefully start filling out the decks and really making some good profit with these. Last few things to say about Inscription is it's pretty much the same. You've got your Vantas runes, no surprise there. They are one of the only other classes in the game to be able to create some weapons. They're making the agility staff and the intellect staff. These are just base level items. These are item level 100s. They require level 50, but these are one of the items that you can put your crafter's marks on to increase the item level all the way up to a possible of 165. So there's a little bit of life in these. You can still make some gold in the future with this. You've got your offhand, you've got your mass milling. All of this is really much of the same. And then this random hat that we don't really have any idea what it's for as of yet, but we do have suspicions that it's going to be for a daily world quest that might pop up and request that you hand one of these in. You can craft it. These will probably be popular on the auction house 1 day a week. The other 5-6 days of the week, nobody will want them. Keep your eyes on the auction house. Have a few crafted ready for when they do go sky high, and enjoy making gold with Inscription. I'll leave it there, guys. I'll keep this one nice and quick. Oh, one last thing I will say with Inscription. We've got no information about glyphs as of yet. If we get some solid information about glyphs, I'll post a follow-up video, and I'll leave a link for that in the description below. But then, guys, I hope this was helpful. I've been Manthius, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.